what a week for the Gators. I mean, what is that right there? Shorthanded. We made our reactions to the Auburn game last week. So there's only been one game since then. But man, they just keep doing it. They go to Mississippi State. We did the review for Mississippi State, didn't we?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. So we already got that done. But you lose Alex Condon in that game. And it does seem like it's going to be pretty tough, especially when you play a team like South Carolina that's going to have a lot of bigs. I mean, Connery Boyles and Nick Pringle. Nick Pringle was a starter, or I think he was a starter for Alabama last year. And then you also have Connery Boyles, a guy who's rejected top 18 pick on ESPN. So that's the game that you look at. It's like, you only have two bigs because Sam Alexis was also out. But then you get the news, Micah Hanglauten is going to end up. We don't know if he's burning a red shirt yet because there is the bill being passed of just getting 5 years to play instead of 4 years red shirts. And there still will probably be medical red shirts in like in that 5 year stuff. But there seems like very confident that 5 years and just flat 5 years will get passed for college basketball. Not sure about college football, though. So don't know if Micah is burning anything or if he's just going to play and hopefully build some depth on this team and take us very far in the NCAA tournament.
Yeah, I mean, I was really impressed with the way the Gators played, without Condon and Sam Alexis, obviously. Micah in his return, I think pretty clearly looked like a guy who hasn't played basketball in a year.
Especially in the first half.
Yeah, he kind of got settled into it, but I mean, I think you could tell he was, maybe again, guy has like a titanium rod in his leg, so I'm not trying to I'm not trying to throw shade, but I mean, he looked like a guy who maybe isn't the most conditioned at the moment.
Yeah.
But I mean, he didn't really make a massive impact on the boards. Had 3 rebounds, only had 2 points, but 5 assists. Was pretty. He was influential, facilitating things as best he could.
I'm pretty sure it was a career high in assist.
Yeah, probably. I mean, I don't think he had 5 assists in a game last year. So, yeah, I mean, it was a useful addition to have. He played a lot, honestly. He played probably more than I thought. 20 minutes, I think. It was probably more than what I thought he would have played. If you had asked me before the game, but
he played.
They needed the depth.
20 minutes exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, he definitely played more than I had expected. Same with Elijah Martin. Elijah Martin only played 23 minutes. I thought he would play a bit more, especially in that second half. Yeah, I guess he only played a couple in the first half. But I mean, Martin, early in that second half, he was a big reason for the defensive success. Because early in the game, I mean, we only gave up 33 points in the first half, which is not bad at all. But early on, South Carolina, they're kind of scoring. But then Martin kind of came in as well. We slowed him down a bit. I think they went on a 12-minute stretch without a field goal from the 15 mark the 8-minute mark in the second half. So I think the 15 mark in the second. Did I say the 8 mark in the first half to the 15 mark in the second half? I don't think they got a field goal. I think they only scored from free throws. Don't get me started on the refs this game. I thought it was very interesting how they ref this game, but still. Defense, they settled down. They kind of felt lazy early on, but they settled down. We got a bunch of stops and end up picking the 21-point win against a team that just a month ago or 3 weeks ago, we only beat by 1 point on a game where we only led in the last 5 seconds. So definitely a big improvement there. What are your thoughts on the game?
Yeah, I mean, I just continue to be so impressed with how many ways this team is capable of winning. Walter Clayton only scored 10 points in this game, and he only had 6, pretty late into the second half, scored a couple kind of at the end. But Denzel Aberdeen and Tommy Houck have, since they've entered the starting lineup the last few games, have just been incredible. I mean, Houck, we've kind of seen it before. Aberdeen, we really haven't. I'm not sure where this came from, but he led the team in scoring with 22. Houck had 20. I think they're each averaging 17 and 16 points in the games that they've started here. And I mean, these are guys that ideally, I mean, maybe we can talk about it. I'm not sure you can take Denzel Aberdeen out of the starting lineup right now. I really am not sure.
Yeah, I have some questions about this a little bit later.
Yeah.
I'll also like to point out. So yeah, only had 10 points. He also did have 8 assists though.
Yeah.
I mean, he had 8 assists and 4 rebounds, so it's like 10, 8, and 4. It's kind of like early, I guess, late out of conference, like in December. It kind of felt like he was sleepwalking through a lot of games, but I don't really think he's taking them slow. I think he's just improving his game. Because he's getting those 8 assists. He's trying to become a better point guard, which I know coming into the season, a lot of people were worried that we're not going to have a true point guard because Walter Clayton as point guard last year didn't work out that well. I mean, look at the Virginia game. He probably lost us that game against Virginia last season. So it's like a lot of questions. And I think he was taking those opportunities early in the season against some weaker competition to learn how to play that position better, experiment with things. And I think we saw it again tonight, or I'm sorry, last night. 8 assists to 2 turnovers. It's a pretty good ratio right there. And I think he's still top 10 in the Ken Palm MVPs or player of the year race. So I'm not really too worried about that. At all.
Yeah, I guess what I was more getting at by talking about him only scoring 10 points was like, you wouldn't think that just looking at the score that Florida wins by 21, you wouldn't think that happens in a game where Walter Clayton only scores 10, Will Richard only scores 8, Elijah Martin only scores 11. Like this, you know what I mean? Like even when those guys don't have the most productive offensive night, you have guys like Denzel Aberdeen and Thomas Houck that can just take over and you can win games easily. Even when you're missing two big men and you have a normally starting guard coming off the bench because he's returning from injury, like when this team is back to full strength with Condon, hopefully in the next week or two, I mean, they're really rounding into form in a way that, like, I don't want to get hyperbolic. Like anything can happen in March. I'm not saying they're going to win the national championship, but like they're more and more looking like a team that I really don't know how you're going to beat them.
I mean, yeah, the same. I mean, yeah, exactly. This team is getting deeper as the year goes along. This is critical for a tournament run. I mean, my question, because you want to talk about, you can't really take Denzel Aberdeen out the starting lineup. Over the past 4 games, so since the Vanderbilt game, Vanderbilt, Auburn, Mississippi State, and South Carolina, who's been the best player on this team? I mean, you have Alex Condon, who in those 2 games, he had 19 and 17, nearly a double-double against Vanderbilt, I believe. He had a double-double against Auburn. Also played really good defense in those 2 games, especially against Auburn on the best or second best player in the country, Janai Broome. Didn't play these past 2 games. Then you also have Walter Clayton Jr., who is the leader and probably the best player on this team. He's slower in this game against South Carolina, but you can't put away the fact that he had, 19 against Auburn, he 10 in this game, and also 19 against Mississippi State, and I think he had like 22 against Vanderbilt. And then you also have Denzel Aberdeen, who through these past 4 games, averaging 16.5 points a game. Wow. I mean, he's also a playmaker, a really good defender, has that good length. And then you just have Thomas Houck. I'm not sure his stats, like, they're not crazy. Like, he's not averaging 16 points a game, probably around 12.
I think he is. I think he literally, at least in these games that he started, these last 2 games. Or I guess the last 2, not that because he didn't start the Mississippi State game, but like the last 2 games that he's played starting minutes. I think he literally is.
So Vanderbilt 8, Auburn 16, Mississippi State 16, and South Carolina 20.
Yeah, so he's averaging 18 in the 2 games that he's playing like starter minutes.
Yeah, I mean, that's just unreal. Along with the fact that he's had 9, 9, 9, and 6 rebounds these past 4 games, and 4, 3, 8, and 3 assists, and 4, 6, 7 blocks in those games, as well as 6 steals in those 4 games. I mean, earlier, or I was talking about it, who's the 6th man of the year in the SEC? Because you have like Jamie Johnson and Todd Pettiford for Auburn, who Pettiford's probably winning the award right now because he's been like that elite all season. But then you look at Florida, they have Thomas Houck and Denzel Aberdeen, who would probably start for any other team in the country besides like Auburn. I mean, because the only other option really was like Caleb Drill from Missouri, who's kind of slowed down. I'm not going to say he's slowed down. He's still doing really good. Missouri's still a really good team. But it does feel like, I mean, Thomas Houck and Denzel Aberdeen, you can't take them off the court. They're just doing too much for this team.
Yeah, I mean, I think Houck you can, because I think Condon and Shinyulu is still.
Yeah.
I mean, I guess you could. I mean, if you really wanted to, you could go three bigs with Hauk.
Yep.
That's a very different style than the way this team's been playing this year.
Mhm.
I mean, Aberdeen, yeah, like, I mean, because my only thing with Aberdeen is that I don't think he's necessarily the best, like, outside shooter, but he's been knocking those shots down. Like, hasn't been
Yep.
consistently doing it all season, but has been the last few games. And I mean, he's a very good defender. He's good at attacking the rim. Like, if he's hitting those shots, I think you might have to have Will Richard come off the bench. Who I love Will
Ooh.
Richard. I think Will Richard's a really fun player. And when he's on, there's not many better players in the country,
No.
but I don't know if he brings you quite as much value as Aberdeen is, at least with the way Aberdeen's playing right at this exact moment in time. Because I don't think you can bench Elijah Martin, because Elijah Martin's too good of a defender.
I think Elijah Martin or Will Richard kind of works really well with Elijah Martin in the fact that you put Elijah Martin on their ball handler, their best guard, really, and then you have Will Richard on that like second best guy, and he's getting a lot of steals when they make lazy passes or because they're really well defended. But going back to Aberdeen being a really good shooter, I mean, going to that Vanderbilt game, 1, 3, 6, 11 threes in these past 4 games, 5 of 7 against South Carolina. I saw a stat earlier that Denzel Aberdeen is shooting 56% from 3 from the corner. I think he hit one or two against Auburn, 1 against Auburn. And then I know he had 2 against Mississippi State and like 3 against South Carolina. So it's like, I mean, you can see the confidence building on Denzel Aberdeen and Thomas Hauk. And I mean, Thomas Hauk as well, 3 of 6 from 3 the past 2 games. I mean, both of these guys, if they're hitting threes, this team is going to be, dare I say, unstoppable. I mean,
yeah, I mean, I think when they, when they do what they did last night and shoot 60% from the field and they did win the rebounding battle, which I don't think they did the first time. They didn't, right?
I think we won it by like 1.
Oh, okay, so it was tight. So yeah, I mean, when they win the rebounding battle and shoot 60% without, maybe their best big man and another, depth piece and Elijah Martin coming off the bench, like, yeah, I mean, certainly when you give a defensive performance the way that like Tennessee did in Knoxville, you can disrupt that, and they're not going to be hitting shots the way they did against South Carolina, but like when they are, yeah, I mean, we've only seen one team do it. I guess 2. I guess Kentucky and Missouri both kind of did it, but I mean, Kentucky really had to do it because they scored 106 points. Like, yeah, I don't know. Like, I think Florida has to really shoot itself in the foot to be in a disadvantaged position in any game.
I think it's about time we start talking about Florida as the best team in the country. I mean, Auburn, resume-wise, it's easily Auburn. Like, I'm not going to say we have a better resume than Auburn and we should be a seed or we should be the number 1 overall seed. But when you look at teams on the court, who you're picking to win each game, Florida's now up to 3rd in national championship odds behind Auburn and Duke. We went to Auburn and we dominated them for the last 30 minutes of that game, really. And I mean, we dominated Mississippi State in the second half, went and dominated South Carolina in the second half, and we're doing those 2 without maybe your second best player in Alex Condon. And then you're also losing Elijah, third best players. Your 2 second and third best players in Elijah Martin and Alex Condon. And then you're doing it with a player who hasn't played in nearly a year, and Micah Handglotten. I mean, I'm starting to think this is the best team in the country. And the goal of this team is winning a national title. Not just making the second weekend, not just making the Final Four, but winning the whole thing.
Yeah, I mean, they need to be healthy to do it. Like, they need to get Condon back and have him be at full strength. But I think, at full strength, I think this team is fully capable of doing that. I mean, I think my only hang up with, calling us the best team in the country is like, I think that Auburn, I think that was a uncharacteristically poor performance from Auburn in that game. I don't know if that's because, like, that might just be what Florida does to you. I don't know. Maybe that's the case. But I do think that, the Auburn that came out, I don't know if you watched that Alabama game yesterday, but they looked pretty impressive in that game on the road. So, Florida has the best win in the country for sure over them.
Yeah.
Auburn's probably been a little bit more consistently good, but right at this exact moment in time, like, I think there's an argument to be made.
Oh, I think we're starting to see some things to Auburn. I don't know if I think they're individually great as players because you're going to go out and see Tahad Pettiford and Miles Kelly and Denver Jones go and create these step back threes that really early on in the game when Auburn went out to a 10-point lead, Florida wasn't playing bad. Auburn was just playing insanely elite. But I think you're seeing that they kind of worry too much about like self-creation rather than team creation, which is what I think we saw from Florida early in the year, which we're now like the ball movement. We've mentioned the assist over the past 4 or 5 games now have been jumping up a ton. And I don't know if we're seeing that from Auburn. I mean, look at the game we had against them. They had 16 assists to our 22 assists. I'm not sure what their assist numbers were against Alabama. And then it's also like, I think I talked about this on our last show, that our video when we after the Mississippi State game, Alex Condon might be the second best big in the SEC. Has Janai Broome faced someone as good as Alex Condon until then, where you take away Auburn's best player, and then you just have the other guys kind of getting out of sorts. You have a team that can get very personal, like Chad Baker-Mazara, Janai Broome, like older veteran players, and they've had a lot of things go their way, especially this year. And when things don't start going their way, it's like, even for a veteran group, kind of get out of sorts.
Yeah, I mean, that's, I think that is a concern for them. I think we'll just have to see, I think I just want to see Florida continue to do it in this next few stretch of games, because I think they're all games that Florida should win pretty easily with or without Alex Condon, with the exception of the Texas A&M game, which I'm not sure. Texas A&M and Alabama are really the only 2 games left on the schedule that like you look at and say, okay, like this could be dangerous. Like otherwise, I think Florida's going to be favored and pretty heavily in pretty much every game down the stretch. So
Ken Palm has his favor in every game but at Alabama. Yeah. And at Alabama, we're only 1-point underdogs. I really think this team matches up too well with like everybody. Like, I don't know if, because I trust our defense. I'm starting to trust our defense a lot now, especially in these big games, to like come out 100%. I honestly think Ole Miss could be a scary game. Ole Miss did just lose by double digits to Mississippi State, and it is a home game. But like, if there's a way we went out until that Ole Miss game, and if we do that, we're gonna be a lock for a 1 seed, and maybe the 1 seed, or we're fighting for like a 1 seed in the SEC tournament. Even I don't know if Auburn's gonna lose. That's the only thing there. But if we beat Bama, we'll probably be the 2 seed in the SEC at least. So there might be a chance to go into that game against Ole Miss, maybe a little lackadaisical, and fumble some opportunities. Ole Miss gets out to an early start, kind of like how Missouri did, where they went up 19 points in that first half, and maybe we come up close. Maybe we do find a way to win it. Maybe they aren't. Maybe they're fully locked in for every game of this season, looking to win the championship.
Yeah, no, for sure. Not a ton to add from that. I mean, I think this team is really rounding into form. And I'm excited to see when Condon gets back, hopefully for that Alabama game. We'll just,
even A&M.
What was that?
Even Texas A&M. Micah Handlaughton, when he came back, he said that he expects Condon to be back in 1 to 2 weeks, which that 2 weeks maximum would be right before that A&M game.
Okay. But yeah, I mean, that would be huge if he's back by then. I mean, I think it's pretty clear this team can win without him. But, I think this team, when it has all its guys, just looks like an absolute wagon right now.
I think the thing with A&M that makes them different, though, like they're different from like every other SEC team in the fact that they're not really trying to play offense too much. Like they're going to play defense and offensive rebounds. I think they lead the nation in offensive rebounds, which if we don't have Alex Condon, could get a little worrisome in that game. Could. Because we've seen us rebound pretty well even without him. So that's kind of why I think if we have Alex Condon hosting Texas A&M, I'm going to feel pretty confident. Like as confident as you can feel for a team that was the 6th ranked team in the NCAA committee's top 16 protected seeds where they released yesterday, where they have Florida 4. But without him, I think it's probably going to be a very close, tough battle game.
Yeah, no, for